Hello folks and welcome to our game with myself, Shane Stapleton. As always, joined at the hip by Michael Verney and brought to you by OurGameRetro.com. Use the promo code OurGame and you get 15% off. By the way, if you want loads of bonus material, go to patreon.com/OurGame. Great way to support the channel. Huge amount of stuff there, including some articles breaking down what happened at the weekend. There's an extensive look at Cork's win over Limerick, and obviously we'll be getting straight into that, Michael. But Christ almighty, it wasn't just about Cork-Limerick. There was some amount of stuff going on.
There was Saturday was teed up perfectly with Carlow getting the result that, with due respect, nobody saw coming, and even with the best will in the world, Carlow supporters wouldn't have even seen that coming. That was just a fantastic way to kind of tee up what was going to follow. And it's obviously a massive sour note for me, and it's been completely glossed over. London had one of the best wins in the football championship in God knows how long. I think they're first in 11 years. And that was an unbelievable high point for them. It's probably no point in saying any difference. It's probably the lowest point in Offaly's football history at the minute. You go for a county that's won 3 football All-Irelands and competed reasonably well with Dublin. We're 12 down, maybe 60-something minutes gone in Croke Park. And then to be absolutely beaten out the gate, beaten by 14 points on home soil, and they had trained well, and there was no one dropped off the panel or anything like that. That was just yet another one of there's so many different subplots throughout the weekend, but Saturday was where it's all at. I see a comment in there, there's nothing like Munster hurling. I tell you, the Leinster hurling is rivaling it a bit this year. Look, and I'm sure we'll chat about it even a bit more on Thursday. The tables going into this weekend, it's just brilliant. Nobody's true. Nobody's gone. If you in a dream world, if you said, how will we make this the most interesting championships possible? This is basically what it would be. It's absolutely brilliant. Everybody on the edge of their seat the whole time.
And this is before we even start talking about penalty shootouts and stuff like that. That penalty shootout, and we might talk about should penalty shootouts exist and all this kind of stuff. But do you know what? Keenan Johnson, who's on the show with us regularly, he reminded me of us talking late last year about who might win the Ulster Championship. Here we go.
Not a chance.
Well, at least I've said something.
Donegal. I've said the opposite of what you said. Donegal will not win Ulster. Not a hope will they win Ulster next year.
But I'm saying number one, Derry won't win it, which was the original question. So will Derry win it? Do you have an answer for us?
I'd say Tyrone might win it next year.
So you're saying Derry won't win it, so they're going to go backwards in that sense. Anyway,
it's great to be right the odd time. I actually thought about that this morning myself, and I know we're going to chat more hurling or whatever, but it is incredible the turnaround in Donegal in 10 months. It's absolutely extraordinary, and also, I would not say Derry have gone backwards either, because they've won Division 1 and they're still they're bigger All-Ireland contenders potentially than Donegal. But it's just amazing. There's something about McGuinness, and we will talk about it later. There is just something about him, and the football mightn't be to everyone's liking or whatever, but they just get results. And if you'd said they were going to win Ulster, most people, you are half mad anyway. You said they would. But there weren't too many people that thought they would, to be fair. It's some achievement.
Yeah, Brendan Rafferty is asking, is it just columns that are on the Patreon? No, there's actually a load of stuff. There's tactical analysis videos of how the teams are setting up. It's the only place you can get the audio podcast, and there's plenty of written columns there as well. Michael, it's just so hard to know where to start. We're going to have Chris Nolan on, who's a senior hurler for Carlow and obviously Mount Leinster Rangers as well. We're going to have Denis Walsh, former Cork dual player and manager, and we're going to have Michael McMullan, who was at the Ulster football final. So there's a huge amount of stuff coming. Pádraig Gillen with a comment, pride of place this week must surely go to Kilkenny. Great to see them back competing again. Questions to be asked at Carlow though, and where they're at. So obviously fairly tongue-in-cheek. Richard Good says, going to need Verney and Shane to say, Cork are back.
I tell you something, they are dangerous now. And we'll get into it. The way they won the game, to have played so well and then be put back. I think they were 4 down, maybe 62nd, 63rd minute, something like that.
Yeah.
And then to win the game the way they did. And even, Shane, whatever about getting the penalty, right? I think it was so crucial even to tag another point onto it. I think that was massive. To go and win by 2. They didn't even win necessarily hanging on or anything like that. They went and forced the next score. And even I was thinking when Hoggy hit that long free down into the corner, you're kind of thinking, the 2013 drawn All-Ireland final, it may have taken 11 years for them to put something into practice to make sure that wouldn't happen again, but it didn't happen again. Cork I think Cork were 50-1 to win the All-Ireland before Saturday night. They're probably about 1/10 of that price now because they are dangerous. But this is the only time I think it's happened so far this year. I don't think Clare carried any hangover of the Limerick game physically too much into the Cork game. I don't think Tip did either because it was a bit of a no-show. But Cork will have a serious physical and emotional hangover after that Limerick game because it was 80 minutes of, like, it never stopped. It was the whole way through. It was like bang, 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 and then the emotion of it all. And I don't know about you, and you can say it was their first win of the championship, and maybe it looked like they were after winning an All-Ireland final with what happened on the field after. But that's what it's all about. If you're a supporter, how do you stay in your seat, or how do you stay in the terrace? You can't. You have to go out there. You're after seeing something so incredible. You have to go out on the pitch. You have to celebrate it for the incredible victory that it was.
Do you know what? Why I was trying to think afterwards. Why was this game so unbelievable? And it definitely ranks as one of the greatest games I've ever seen. And I was thinking about, you're trying to sum it up. Okay, 86 shots, 60 scores, 6 goals, momentum shifting both ways. Cork were ahead, Limerick were ahead, the whole lot. And I actually think one of the things that made it so good was how accurate both teams were. Like, Cork had a 71% scoring efficiency. Limerick had 76. Like, this is insane to convert that much. And of the final 21 shots of the game, 18 resulted in scores. So there was no let up, and it was like it was just been turned up a notch and a notch and a notch and tit for tat. Whereas, like, wides are the oxygen thief of a match, and there was none of that here, and that's why it was just so incredible. And to be fair, credit to both teams, like, spectacular stuff.
Unbelievable effort, like, left out there by both teams. It was just, you couldn't take your eyes off it. I would have loved to have been there for several reasons, but even like off the ball stuff that was going on, like, there was a right bit of niggle, and I always say, like, bitter is better. The bit of bitterness, there was a bit of niggle all over the pitch. And even, I don't know about you, I love seeing Pat Ryan telling Kinnerk to get back down there, whatever. Like, Sean, that showed that he was up for it as well. I don't know how him and Donald O'Rourke were wearing the big high coats that they were wearing on the evening that it was. It must have been absolutely boiling. But I love to see that. Even Ethan Toomey getting into Carlow at the throw-in, you're like, yeah, this is more like it. Your season is on the line. Show how much it means to you. And I do think Cork has been waiting probably to win a game like this in a while. What are we looking at? 2021 All-Ireland semi-final since they won a game like that. They didn't get a bounce off that, obviously, because of the All-Ireland final, but they could get a fair bounce off this if they're able to get over the physical and mental toll that will have taken on them. And I'm sure your boys will be just waiting there. Nobody's talking about your lads, and you'll be ready to go and hopping off the sod next week in Thurles.
Look, we're going to show up and fulfill the fixture because that's the class of the men.
Sure, how would you compete with a team just after beating the 4 in a row All-Ireland champions?
She couldn't. Sure, what's the point in us even showing? We might just send out the minors and just say, look, lads, you go off and enjoy your summer there, come back for the club. Do you know what? Shane Kingston's, what he did, like, I was trying, again, we're always trying to think, what would you compare it to? Would you compare it to, like, and maybe you're exaggerating somewhat, but like Maradona going off on a run, or Messi, or whoever, just going off on an amazing, unbelievable run. And I was just thinking, he got the ball and it was just like, F this, I'll do it myself. And he just kept going at all-star defender after all-star defender, walked past Diarmaid Byrnes like he wasn't there, then straight at Kyle Hayes, like flicking the ball over lads' heads. Like, this was incredible stuff. And then when it comes down to it, it was a black card penalty given. And Cork were absolutely stitched up, not intentionally by the ref, because obviously he didn't see the ball fall out of, whose hands was it that time running through? Was it Desi Hutchinson?
Jack Prendergast.
Jack Prendergast, apologies, in the Waterford-Cork game. And the ball had been spilled, so a black card penalty could not have justifiably been given against Kieran Joyce, which had a huge impact on the rest of the game, because it shouldn't have been a penalty either. And you might say this shouldn't have been a penalty here. But like, how long have we been saying any cynical foul, and I would say any rugby tackle anywhere on the pitch, I've said this a million times for 10 years, should result in a penalty. So I don't even care if Limerick can say it wasn't a goal scoring opportunity. Well, like, it probably was. He could let loose and there was lads coming. But either way, justice was done because it was unbelievably cynical, and we would not have had the amazing finale if a rugby tackle was rewarded.
Just a couple of things. I think Patrick Collins had the ball pucked out maybe 4 seconds after the ball went over the bar. And you can obviously, like, he was being allowed to do that. But like, if you look at it, they're barely showing a replay of Aidan O'Connor's point going over the bar. And
what
you can see, outrageous score. And you can see Kyle Hayes scrambling on the other side of the pitch. Collins has the ball gone out. Burns had hit a free on the newsstand side, shall we say, in Parky Queeve, and had to get over to the far side. Kingston was obviously in space. It was an amazing run, but I will say this: I couldn't believe he wasn't taken down before he was taken down. I couldn't believe that Burns didn't even run into him. Like, he threw the ball over Dermot Burns's head. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Even on the Hayes one, I can't believe he didn't run into him, or I can't believe he gave the referee even the opportunity. And I know Hayes had covered every blade of grass, I should say, for the previous 90 minutes, but he was actually caught flat-footed. His feet were totally planted and kind of left himself with no other choice. I think Fergal O'Connor was coming across, but it was a cynical tackle as you can get. But it was just an amazing sequence of play. I think John Kiley actually bemoaned after, like, that they were punished for scoring a point, that the ball came out that quick. He had a weird kind of a segue into going on about the Mayor Fornas as well, and how they can't get communication. Yeah, it was a funny one. I think a lot of it was a frustration that problems were happening on the pitch and they'd no way of getting a message in to rectify it. And with the helmet rule being changed, maybe that's something potentially taken out of their arsenal as well. But it was just the perfect finish to what was like a grandstand game. Like, from start to finish, you could not take your eyes off this. It was brilliant.
And you can be sure that there would have been a Nicky Quaid contact lens issue if this whole rule hadn't been brought in. So to be fair, it proved to be a bit of a triumph here, as did the black card to some degree. But like you said, if he gets taken down further out, the penalty doesn't happen. So that needs to go that bit further.
The punishment really fit the crime, because it was a goal scoring chance, or a goal scoring chance was going to be created. So, like, was it to the letter of the law? Was it the right decision? It's probably somewhat borderline. You might need to see it from behind the goal to see if there was someone covering over, which there might have been. But for what it stopped, it was the right decision, even if it's not technically by the rules.
Just Pat Ryan answered a lot of questions in this game, didn't he? Because, like, you go back to the last few weeks and some of the decisions or the things that have gone against him, like Sean O'Donoghue getting sent off on a second yellow card. Now, look, Sean obviously shouldn't have done the third man tackle on Shane O'Donnell, and then obviously Damien Cahalane, who was already on a yellow card, getting that second yellow card against Waterford. And you could potentially say both days it cost him. Now, that's not directly Pat Ryan, but he took the issue out of Owen Downey's hands, and I think Owen Downey is brilliant and is a guaranteed starter for Cork now. But he took him off after 23 minutes and just said, you're doing a high wire act back there in the full forward line, because we need to put such pressure on Cork out the field. We need a defender who can sort of straddle the line between what's legal and not illegal and hope to get, like, that's just the way of it. But Sean O'Donoghue, because you can be sure that he spent the 2 previous weeks thinking about how he cost his team the game. And it's a 15-man game, plus subs and all that kind of stuff. It's not totally down to him. But you can imagine what he was going through the last few weeks. His performance on Aaron Gillane was absolutely exceptional. And I'm not saying that Gillane didn't impact the game, but he's the hurler of the year. And Sean O'Donoghue won how much ball against the head? Like, that brilliant sort of diagonal ball. And I can picture Hegarty doing it a few times. Like, he was unbelievable. I really thought he was brilliant. But you know what stood out to me? I thought it was a little unusual, some of the substitutions that Limerick made late on. Now, the Declan Hannon one, I'm sure that's injury enforced. He seemed to be limping. And I couldn't help but think of Harry Kane being taken off against Real Madrid last week, that there's no way he would have been taken off unless you absolutely had to. That was a back issue for Kane. So obviously Hannon had to be taken off. And there's an issue within that when you look at the injuries to the likes of Sean Finn and the two Caseys and so on. But when you come back to it again, I thought it was so strange to take off Aaron Gillane, because he'd done brilliantly in the 66th minute to win a puck-out break, spin really well, and do a stick pass into space for Grode Hegarty to knock the ball over the bar. And then a couple of minutes later, he's taken off. Now, I'm not saying that Donegal Dálaigh isn't going to have an excellent career or any of that kind of stuff, but the lead had been cut to 2, and they made the decision to take out Gillane, your most deadly forward. Perhaps it hadn't been his day in the sense of what he scored, but he turned over for the first Seamus Flanagan goal. Like, he can impact the game. He doesn't always have to score to impact it. So I did think that was a little unusual. What did you make of that?
Yeah, no, he has been taken off in the other games, I suppose. So maybe it was taken off against Clare as well. But to me, you do try and leave your big guns on, your big game changers, and he had a couple of impacts on play. Maybe not scoring from play. He had a wild shot actually around 25 yards out, kind of over the shoulder in the first half, that went wide on the right post, which was unlike him, but he was still very clinical for the Flanagan goal. I loved that first Flanagan goal as well, just popping it up and striking it as a free without taking it into hand, because he probably didn't know he had the time as well. And he linked a lot of play with Hegarty in the second half too. Just on a point you made there, it was a brave call taking Owen Downey off, because it was a combative kind of a duel between him and Seamus Flanagan. Flanagan goes on to get 3-3 after when he goes off, and on Sean O'Donoghue as well, a brilliant man marking job on Gillane, and particularly good because he's probably at fault for 2 goals as well from the sharp hookouts, but he was still able to keep his job in mind and do that very well despite making those mistakes. And I just listened to an interview with him after. He said after being sent off against Clare and they were debriefing about the game, he said he felt he couldn't have any impact on the game. He couldn't give any feedback because of, and I don't know, when you've played badly in a game, even you kind of feel like you can't really give that much feedback on the game afterwards.
Yeah.
You were useless. What are you saying? Do you know what I mean?
We've been there many times.
I've been there a couple of times, too many times, unfortunately. But it was a really good display. He's done pretty well on Gillane in general down through the years, and that was Cork getting the strong hand in that duel was very, very important. But yeah, I agree with you. Was surprised to see Gillane go off. But Shane, just quickly, Hannon went off grimacing. I don't think it was tiredness. Finn went off with a hammer. He pulled up chasing back after Shane Barrett and was in bother straight away. So the next day you're looking at, and I know they've overcome unbelievable injuries down through the years, but you're looking at starting team, unless they throw Mike Casey straight in, which they never do, unless they throw Darragh O'Donovan straight in, which they never do, you're looking at without Mike Casey, without Sean Finn, potentially without Hannon, without potentially Darragh O'Donovan and Peter Casey. So there's 4 to 5 certain starters. And then let's just say you put Fergal O'Connor in, who had a tough enough day at the office in his first day in coming in. Let's just say you throw Conor Boylan in or someone from the start. Then you're digging into your reserves to come in. So your starting team has been weakened and your finishing team has probably been weakened as well. So they're lucky to have 2 weeks. They're lucky to have 2 weeks to try and get it right.
Let's go through some of the players who had unbelievable performances for Cork. This was Cork showing a bit of cojones. 30 odd years ago, you were always, and 20 years ago, you were always talking about Cork having an edge to them and being physical and being up for it. Whereas their manlyhood has been questioned for a couple of generations at this stage. But look at Rob Downey at centre back. I mean, what a performance. If you were Limerick, you were like, we can't puck the ball down the centre anymore. Whereas, funnily enough, going the other way, Cork said, we'll do what Tip did in the first half of the 2021 Munster final. We'll go straight down the guts with a long puck out and get the breaks. And they got so much joy off it. But who played well for Cork outside of Rob Downey? Well, pretty much everyone. Darragh Fitzgibbon, 5 points from play, unreal. Declan Dalton working hard, dropping deep, firing ball up the field. That long-range ball he did for Fitzgibbon, wonderful. Brian Hayes, really good. Kingston, obviously brilliant off the bench. Horgan, we haven't even got to Horgan, which kind of tells you everything. Alan Connolly keeps going at you. But Shane Barrett, at Harnedy, 1-2. Shane Barrett, oh my God, what a performance he gave. What a nightmare he is.
Yeah, he's brilliant. There was even a stage in the second half where he picked up a ball under the far stand and he knew it was Hannon that was on him. So he just had to go. He had to go and put him under pressure. And that also leads into potentially Hannon getting injured a couple of minutes later, because a fella is, you're pushing someone to the brink. Barrett was unbelievable. He's just an absolute live wire. And Hayes' flick down to Barrett for the first goal. Like Hayes looks up and you can see him looking over, little flick. But Barrett's timing was so good, and I thought Cork's timing under that breaking ball and the puck out. You know, you've been there and I've been there. You know, when you're there too early and you're basically a non-entity, like they were arriving at the perfect time. It's one thing putting a puck out down the guts. It's another thing, you know, arriving on the break at that exact moment where if you get the ball, you're at top speed and there is nobody catching you. I thought Harnedy, particularly in the first half, like he was just, it's funny, he was everywhere and there was nobody with him a lot of the time. He was drifting into all sorts of pockets of space, finding all sorts of areas. There was a moment in the first half where he was down. He got a right slap at one stage. I don't know, was it
him off the ball?
Or was it him and Dalton running into each other?
Yeah. Dalton let fly on the ball.
A great flick, and it was a lovely first-time ball in. Ground hurling's not gone either. But he peeled Harnedy, and Harnedy's like this, and he's holding his chest. 15 seconds later, he's catching a puck out from 110 yards and setting up a score. It was outrageous stuff. And Harnedy definitely rolled back the years. Hoggy, I think, was 36 last weekend, and just even the fact that Pat Ryan knew we need to have this lad on until the end. Something might happen, or he can potentially dictate the game or turn the game at the end. And I just even thought he didn't take too much time in that penalty now either, did he? They were back showing replays, and the ball was nearly in the top corner, and it was an unbelievable strike as well. And just his cuteness for that free to put it down to the corner as well. Do you know what I've said? Criticise or question Cork enough down through the years. It was brilliant to see what we saw the other night, because they went deep into the reserves and delivered a brilliant performance that could just really open up their season now.
And with the penalty, like the goalkeeper holds it like that, he put it across him, so that was really, really smartly done. And minimum of fuss, just plonked it down, have a slap, and that was it. And you just knew he was going to bury it. There was never, even go back to the previous day against Clare, he puts down the free, just buries it, and it puts him back at the top of the scoring list of all time. And I think he's played something like, is it 6 or 7 games fewer than TJ Reid? And obviously, every one of his games in a provincial championship has been against the top side, whereas he's not padding the scores against teams that are well off the challenger list, really. So it's truly incredible.
Are you saying that TJ Reid's record is like Robbie Keane's Irish scoring record?
I don't think there's a way to look around and say, yeah, fair play to him, credit for every score he's ever got. But you have to say, if you're to compare the records, to do it against pretty much the big teams all the time, and obviously Cork have had a few teams that aren't quite as strong in the back door, but you have to call a spade a spade. And this is also Hoggy in a team that has never won an All-Ireland during his era, whereas Kilkenny won many.
Yeah,
during the first half of Reid's.
Yeah, I actually don't really care about the scoring record. To me, it's more, I would look at who has delivered more in the situations when they needed to deliver, and to me that would be Reid. I ignore the scoring record. I wouldn't say who's top of the scoring record is the best forward of all time or anything like that, but I take your point on board.
Yeah. So do you know what, the puck outs though, back to that again, and I was looking at what Tipperary were doing, much to my chagrin, whatever the hell that means. But I was looking at what Tipperary were doing against Limerick, and they were sort of hitting the puck out over to the left wing or the right wing, and maybe 2 players would be over there and you'd be hoping to win it. And you remember coming into that game, I said Tipperary should overload one side or one area, hit the puck out into it, turn it into a war so that Limerick don't quickly win it. They're 2 or 3 hand passes and they're out. Cork decided, we know that Limerick are going to set up zonally, which is what we were talking about on the show as well. So we're like, okay, if you're going to hold men out to either flank and you know that one lad is going to stay in the middle, let's just absolutely blast the ball straight down the middle as far as we can. And Collins got some distance on those pucks. And at times he went short to the full back and took it again and then blasted it from maybe 20 yards out or whatever. But the point being that they went after what they knew Limerick would do. And Tipperary did not and failed to do that. And, that's something that they'll have to reflect on. And I said to you after the Clare League semi-final, Tipperary need to get the puck outs right. And they didn't, and they paid the price for it. But Cork went after it. And then as soon as the Limerick realised, oh no, this is breaking and we're losing ball here, then they have to think about, okay, we need to fold in a little bit tighter. And then all of a sudden the space is opened up out wide. So I think you have to give Pat Ryan and his players and goalkeeper Patrick Collins, I don't blame him for either of those, balls that were turned over for goal. No, I don't. I'll tell you why. Because the defender needs to look ahead and say, this isn't working, I'll just pop it straight back. The defender needs to get that right.
I think for the one where he basically poked it to him when Hegarty was on his shoulder, I don't think he should. Maybe he didn't see him actually.
The ball.
No, I would. That puck out was never on for the second goal. I don't think that was ever on. But outside of that,
but the other puck outs don't work if you don't take the risk with the short one now and again.
Gerard Hegarty, 6'4", is standing about 2 inches away from him. The ball never should have went to him.
No, but like he had the ball and he spilled it. You got to just catch it and then you're fine. You're out. You just got to catch the ball. Simple as. It wasn't a bad delivery. Like that is the tactic.
I never said it was a bad delivery. It was a bad puck out choice.
No. Because you understand
it. You can't. No. I tried it. Like I putting it down the guts to. There's loads of men there. Generally, with a sharp puck, you're giving it to a lad that's in a bit of space that can get the ball and look up. The second O'Donoghue looked up, he had a 6'5" giant in his face. Like he was right beside him. That puck out was never on. If you wanted Dye going down that alley, then that's fair enough. But that puck out was never on.
Yeah, but look, for me, catch the ball and just pop it straight back to the keeper if you don't like what's in front of you. Like, if he catches the ball, that's it. And look, O'Donoghue had an unbelievable game. By the way, we should talk about Seamus Flanagan and his execution for the goals. What I loved about it is, you see some forwards and they don't understand how to get themselves into that small bit of wiggle room for the ball to be popped into. Some of them go too close to the goalkeeper. Some of them go too far away. Lads do the wrong thing. With him, every time he got himself just enough wiggle room that goalkeeper wasn't in on top of him and he was making himself fully available.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Like, I'm trying to think of how many goal chances he's had saved even down through the years. When he gets a shot away, he's generally taken on a shot from the right spot. Even like the angle for the one where Hegarty threw it out to him was actually quite tight. The angle for the third goal where Collins came out to block him was very, very tight as well. But he buys himself a little more time on the strike, or a little time to look up and see where he can assess or put the ball whereabouts into the net he can put it into. But like he was really, really on form. Am I right in saying he was was he an unused sub against Tipperary the second day? Yeah, like he comes and scores 3-3 when he really needs it, and it's a bit like the time Milan got 3-1 in the Munster final and still somehow finished up on the losing team. Flanagan would be scratching his head wondering how he finished up on the losing team the other day. But that was the nature of just how kind of crazy it was, really. It was just a crazy, crazy game.
Yeah. And you just wonder from there, can the championship keep getting better? And where are you at with this GAAGO thing? Because it costs $4 million a year to run it. GA puts 83% of whatever they make. This is according to Jarlath Burns and Claire Byrne this morning. Puts 83% straight back into it. Do you feel like people deserve to have it totally for free? And, ultimately, if we don't have someone else carrying it, how is it supposed to carrying the TV rights? How is it supposed to wash its own face if everything that's good is put out for free and people aren't willing to pay for something that doesn't have the big games?
Yeah, no, I actually don't have the issue with paying for it per se. I probably have the issue with paying for something that's you can't get everywhere in the country. You know what I mean? If I pay for that and it's a subscription channel on my television, then I know it's going to be perfect. I turn it on and it's there, and there's going to be no issues. But there are plenty of areas in the country where you pay for a subscription and you cannot see what you're paying for. I also have an issue with some of the games that we're having on terrestrial television and some of them that were not. Like, I know the provincial finals have to be carried, the 4 football provincial finals. Are you telling me that one of them couldn't have been, or 2 of them couldn't have been on a Saturday to accommodate, the hurling bit on a Sunday, or plan it out a bit better? Like having 2 weekends in a row where there was no hurling when you're right in the middle of, you're in the meaty part of the best part of the hurling championship, realistically, and go down through the years. The Munster championship, particularly since the round robin, but even maybe before then, has been the best part of the hurling championship, or one of the best parts. And we've kind of just put that away where a hell of a lot of people can't see it. And like I'm not tech savvy, as I said to you before. I'm able to get it up on my laptop. I wouldn't have a clue how to get it onto the television. I don't know how a lot of older people would be able to. My parents wouldn't have a clue what to do. I'd say it'd be an hour trying to walk my mother through how to get signed in or do whatever. And what do you put in here? Like, do you know what I mean? Like this type of thing. So it is kind of. I just think the game. How good the game was as well is what's really putting people's noses further out of joint, because anybody that missed it, like as I said, I was chatting with my parents on Saturday evening, and like they didn't really know the game was going on, just because they're of that generation where they turn something on, and if it's on, they'll watch it, and it's usually a staple within the GAA. Whether it's a Saturday evening or a Sunday afternoon, you turn something on, you turn the TV on, and the GAA is there, but it's not there at the minute. And it's just a pity that so many people missed out on what was like one of the greatest games probably of all time ever played out.
Well, certainly I think it's time to, if they haven't already, look into having this as a TV channel. That's a subscription TV channel. Like, it does have to wash its own face. None of us like having to pay for stuff, but there's a reality behind it as well. Now, I do think for the likes of yourself, it is willful ignorance if you're going to say you don't know how to cast it onto the TV. I mean, it's not difficult for you. Older people, I may get it, but for you now, I'm not buying it.
It's fear.
It's not. It's laziness.
No, it's not.
You couldn't be arsed.
It's fear. It's fear.
What?
We fear change. Great line from Wayne's World.
Yeah. Do you know what? There's a point here from Concla95. And by the way, keep getting your comments in. We love getting them in. Burns' frees are no longer an automatic white flag. Makes a big difference in games. And that is true. And actually, if you go back to the two previous games, whether it's a miss-hit free or whatever it was against Clare, we've never seen him hit a free like that before. Maybe, like we were kind of thinking, was that a brilliantly played ball in that ended up in the net? And then you look at the one against Tipperary, it ends up in a goal as well. So the cracks are papered over somewhat in that respect.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose, and they were probably two kind of game changers in those two games. Well, they're not in so much in the Tip game. The first one definitely was. Burns is just a bit off, probably more than a bit off his game to the consistent levels that we've seen the last couple of years. But there's one happy Cork man today. Denis, how are you?
I'm very good, Michael. Yourself?
Good. I just love. There's a nice little. Even the smile even suggests a little swagger.
We're back in the house, all right. Yeah, Sorry.
Sum it up for us, Denis. What was it like? And I presume you were there.
Oh, I was, yeah. Yeah, it was. I suppose. Look, we felt we had a chance going into it. I mean, like. I would say go bar the All-Ireland final in 21. Like, Limerick and ourselves have a good old tussles over the last few years. I know we came out the wrong side of it last year, but we felt that, like, physically we had a very big side. That was the one thing, like, very big side going into the game on Saturday evening. And we felt if we stayed in there for the first, say, 25 minutes, that we had a great chance. That was the general feeling anyway. And I mean, look, sure, their first half display was unreal, to be honest with you. And so at half time, it was a case of, well, I suppose batten down the hatches for the first 15 minutes of the second half. But like as it turned out, we probably gave Limerick the chances to nail us. But I think the first half display, like, created a bit of groundwork for the lads, and I think they had a bit of belief in themselves, and like they. I suppose it was, like, we can say it's do or die in the last 5 minutes, but I think maybe the first half display left something in our players' heads, like, for the last 5 or 10 minutes to keep coming back, like, and I'd say they kind of felt that they could get something out of the game, and in fairness, they kept going, which was brilliant,
When Shane Kingston set off with that ball, like, did you think the game was gone at that stage, and what were you thinking when he picked up that ball?
Well, let's say before he picked up the ball, I would have said, yeah, the game was gone, because I felt even when he picked it up, there's no way they were going to leave him travel more than 10 yards. Same as Jake Morris against Waterford the week before. But I couldn't for the life of me understand why he wasn't nailed 40 yards sooner than he was. But
hey, what would have happened 20 or 30 years ago, Denis? Where would he be? Up in the stand?
we'd be willing to do jail for it anyway, I'd say.
Who impressed you, Denis? Like, of the Cork players?
Well, I look. I mean, I think the collective mindset was the biggest thing, and I think, to be fair, now anyone still involved in hurling realizes like that the intensity of the games now mean that, my God, if you don't play as a team, and if you don't play for the team, there's no individual stuff will get you very far. But look, saying that, I mean, I thought the half forward line, even though you could argue that individually, you know, they weren't standing out or anything like that, but I thought they were very, very tuned in what they were doing. You know, I think Cork got their tactics right from the point of view that they played 3 inside in the full forward line, which meant that Barry Nash was nearly taken out of the game. He was pushed back in. And our half forward line led Limerick and Merry Dance in the first half. Now, I think having the wind, was crucial to Cork in the first half, because if you look at Nicky Quaid's puck outs in the first half, he couldn't get him beyond, with the wind, he couldn't get him beyond the Cork half 70, right? Whereas that our puck outs were able to go wherever we wanted, really. And like, I think Seamus Hardy, I mean, I was down there near the 50, and Jesus, he kept cropping up unattended. I'd say about 3-4 times in the first half. I mean, 3 or 4 times doesn't sound a whole lot, but when a fella appears like out of that, I think it kind of gave Cork a lot of belief that there was a lot of openings there. So I think the half forward, and I would say, like, even individually, you could argue that they didn't stand out a whole lot, but I think collectively they really worked their socks off, you know.
Michael?
Denis, what do you think this can do for Cork now? Like, they were playing, their season was on the line, obviously, last Saturday. We've seen it before. Of all the counties, when Cork get a bit of momentum, you kind of think anything is possible. They've probably been waiting for a win like this as well. I know the tip game is, well, it's a fair sticky wicket kind of coming up this weekend, but like, where do you think they can go from here? Like, is anything possible for this Cork team now this year?
Yeah, well, I think it is. I mean, like, don't forget, if you break down the game last Saturday night, like, we conceded, without I was at the game, and it was going so fast, it was very hard to take in everything, to be honest with you. But I haven't looked back on television or anything like that to the final points of it. But like, I think we conceded possibly 2-2 from puckouts, our own puckouts, in the second half for no reason, right? So they're the small things when you're coaching any fella now. You're saying, like, Brian Cochran wrote a book, Every Single Ball was the name of it. And I keep quoting it to guys, every single ball. So there's no good saying like that we got 90% of the thing right. If Cork are capable of being very successful even this year, but they'll have to get every single ball right, every passage of play. And as I said, like, Limerick, that turnaround was 8 points down to 4 points up. That's a 12-point swing, right? And it just took too much out of them. And if you look at the last 3, the Cork one on the D and the last 2 puckouts, Limerick were not able to get back down the field. They were worn from the effort. So don't forget, like, they did a 13-point turnaround against Clare from, say, 9 points down to something like 5 or 6 up. There was a 13-point swing that day. So, like, that's taken a fair bit out of them, like, and I think from Cork's point of view, then, like, that scenario of getting everything right, like, was there any reason to change our puckouts differently from what we were doing in the first half? That's what I was asking myself.
But you probably would have said that the wind would have stopped them going quite as far, and you didn't need the variety of going short and long, I suppose, Denis. Yeah,
but sure, like, you've just nailed it there. Like, is that, well, if it's working, don't change it. I mean, like, I can remember going back in, was it 1996? I think Glenn Gaynor was over Clare, and Kieran Carey, that brilliant player, was centre back for Limerick, and I asked Len, how did they take Kieran Carey out of the game? And he said, well, sure, at centre back, he was breaking onto everything. So just put the ball down over his head, keep him underneath it, tie him up. And I suppose look at someone like Diarmaid Burns, who's been a brilliant player, but like a lot of his stuff is probably, getting free strikes on the ball. Well, sure, if you land the ball down over his head, he's tied in underneath it anyway. And isn't it better to have him tied in underneath it than accepting a pass from some fella 100 yards from goal, because the chances are he'll put it over the bar or give a brilliant delivery into the full forward line. So there's different small little things of different ways of putting oppositions under pressure, I think. And I would have kept, in the last 20 minutes of the match Saturday night against the Breeze, well, where do we put our puckouts? Mainly long, and even in fairness, then the one to Shane Kingston, in fairness now to Patrick Collins, again, put it out simply to him, fair enough. But if you go along most of the time, you'll put the pressure on the opposition, and then it'll give you a few handier options after that. That'll be my own feeling on it,
Yeah, and I was just thinking about the Limerick comebacks in every game, because they were up against Clare, for example. Now, Tip was a bit different, but they still had that second half burst. So against Clare, it was like 3-5 to a point. They had a run in the second half. Against Tip, it was 2-7-2. Against Cork here, it was a run of 2-8-4. And I would say the other two teams lost, but Cork found a way here. And you look at what happened after the game, the crowd and all that kind of stuff. Denis, what has this done in terms of changing the perception of the Cork hurling team within the public down there? And where is belief now?
Well, I suppose there's probably a split there. I mean, I suppose the people that are walking on the ground, the people that are coaching, the people that are directly involved in the clubs, as against the guys who are going to the matches, right? I think the guys on the ground will understand that the quality of players that we have, and the work that's being done. And I think we realised going into this game, even Saturday night, truthfully, that we just needed to a bit of luck on our side, if you want to put it that way. And we probably got that bit of luck by getting the new rule for the penalty for a goal scoring opportunity. Because if we hadn't got the goal on Saturday night, don't forget, if we hadn't got the goal at the bitter end and Patrick Horgan nailed it brilliantly, what conversation would we be having today? Only God help us where our Cork, right? But we got that bit of luck, and I think like that the Cork panel are very strong. Like Robbie O'Flynn wasn't even on the 26th the other day. We would have said 3 months ago, if we were having this chat, that we couldn't see Cork going out and being anyway successful without Robbie O'Flynn being on the team.
No, Kieran Joyce as well, Denis. To win a big game without your centre back as well, That's
the truth, yeah. Who's been brilliant for us there now for the last 2 years, and is still only a very young man. And that's it, yeah. And the Cork panel, again, the people that are involved in the local scene, like myself, we will realise that we, and you know it yourself, we have a lorry load of players there, only just to crack to get over that line. I mean, not going off the point now, but you talk about, we said, the periodization there of scores and games with Limerick and that, right? And coming back and big tallies in 10 or 15 minute spells, right? But it probably caught up to them the other night. Will it, from everyone's point of view with Limerick, will it be a catalyst to focus their mind, and will they be a bigger animal down the track? Possibly. But if you go back to I was looking at the Ulster football final yesterday, last night, on 51 minutes, Armagh had 15 points scored when he blew the final whistle, and 73, which is 22 minutes later, 15 points. No score in the last 22 minutes of the match. At any level, you must keep the thing ticking over. And I suppose if you go back to the league with Cork, there was 20-minute spells in some of the league matches where we hadn't scored in that, whereas that probably Saturday night now we kept the old thing ticking over and we kept it going. And they had 2:15 in the first half, was it? And won 113 the second half. You know, it's fairly consistent enough, if you want to put it that way. So I think I mentioned at the start, like the size. If you look at the 6 Cork forwards, I know Patrick Horgan mightn't be the tallest man, but he's physically a big man. Like the size of the Cork forwards, they're all big men. They're hard to deal with, and I know we have a lot of pace coming off the bench. Actually, I was kind of thinking Jack O'Connor was a kind of a guy that would have been an ideal man to come in there. But in fairness, Shane Kingston probably has that bit more experience than him at the minute of coming in there. But like Jack is a guy that could be, you know, I thought he would have come on and maybe against Clare actually in that game would be an ideal. So like Cork have a lot of things going from, but don't forget, like, well, we have to nail the next one as well. So that's the next question, isn't it? You know,
I have to ask you about that. So it's proper old school knockout. Whoever loses this game between Tipperary and Cork is gone. What's your memories of playing against Tipperary? And Tomas Mulcahy told me a few years ago, he was like, "Did I hate Tipperary?" And he was smiling. He was like, "Yes, I did hate Tipperary." Like when you were playing, and I'm sure it's sort of like one of those things, I can't bear to lose to them rather than an absolute like poison for each other. But what was it like, the rivalry for you?
Be honest now, Dennis. Be honest.
Well, yeah, I suppose when you were playing Tipperary, your manhood was called into question. and if you didn't stand up that day, you really weren't rated. I mean, I would, you know, that's old fashioned, isn't it? Really.
Well,
so if you didn't do it. Yeah, well, if you didn't do it against Tip, you weren't rated down in Cork, and I'd put it that way. Like so you know you were on the line. You better get stuck in and get out there and get stuck in. And so we had some fantastic battles, and I mean, in fairness, you could call it old-fashioned stuff, like, but by God, it was, you know, if you look back in any of the old games, there it was fast and furious, and there wasn't a whole lot in it at any stage, and even when I got involved as a manager there 10 or 12 years ago for some of the games, there wasn't a whole lot, only maybe a goal here or there in some of those games. And like coming out of Cork the other night, you'd be kind of saying to yourself, would Cork have too much power and pace at the minute for Tipperary? That's the obvious thing that you would, as a coach, say potentially, but that, like, I know Tipperary better than that to know that as well. They'll bring something different, and you'd want a very good platform now to be using your pace the next day out, I'd say.
Were you in the dressing room the time Canon O'Brien did that famous thing of hanging up the 2 jerseys? And if you were, can you describe it to us?
No, well, I don't remember that one now, but I do remember Brian told us when and I'm trying to think of the year I suppose we were struggling a bit anyway. I'm trying to think now, was it even, I'd say it was even 90, I'd say it was 90 even, but I think he was going around even around a 7-up bottle full of water, and he had us in a circle, and I think we were just struggling before half time anyway, so he was literally going around 1-to-1, dousing us with water, waking us up, as he said. He said, "I'm only waking you up now, lads." So that's what I certainly remember that one, but I don't remember the one with the jerseys now.
Oh, well,
I'd say it could have been holy water, Dennis.
Well, that's what he claimed, but I don't think so. I think.
Well, apparently what happened was that Canon O'Brien hung a Tipperary jersey and a Cork jersey up on the dressing room wall, and he was asking the players, what's the difference between the 2 of them? And he says then, "I'll tell you the difference. See that one? That's the blood and bandages of Cork. See the other one? It has a big yellow streak running through it."
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with that psychology. Yeah,
yeah. Do you know what?
I must have been in the toilet that time.
but like I can't help but thinking, you know, when I was a young lad seeing Tip and Cork, Aidan Ryan, when he scored that late goal in 1991, the crowd was out on the pitch already, and he was telling me in an interview later on down the line that there was a know your sport question of what happened next. So it showed him scoring the goal and coming out on the pitch and all the people coming out on the pitch, and there was someone on a wheelchair doing a wheelie or being led around in a wheelie, and all sorts of stuff has happened in this fixture over the years, Dennis.
Well, somebody claimed that could have been me in the wheelchair. Maybe I was going so slow that day, but yeah, no.
Who's going to win the All-Ireland from here, Denis?
Sorry?
Who's going to win the All-Ireland from here?
That's some question. We don't even know. We couldn't even name one county that's coming out of Munster or Leinster. The other lad's asking who's going to win the All-Ireland.
Well, I'm hoping he sets his county up for a fall.
You caught me on the hop there, because I before I came on there, I partly guessed you'd have the old Cork jersey on, so I was going to go down train, put on the tip one for the old interview.
This is the old retro one, our sponsor. We have to get behind them, Denis. You know.
Yeah, I know. It'll be interesting to see. I'd say like Limerick, in fairness to themselves, now will be. I'd say they'll be fairly annoyed now they left that game go. Very annoyed, I'd say, more than anything else. You know, like in professional terms, they had the game locked down, you know, and they didn't see it out. So they'll be fairly annoyed over that. And you know, it's hard. Like when Limerick get into Cork Park, it suits them even better than any of the other pitches and that. And it's still like Peter Casey with that very, very nasty, you know, serious injury. That gives them a cause. Now, I suppose Mike Casey being out and now Sean Finn the last day, you know, but the plus side for them is like Adam, they got India 2 O'Connors the last day, who would be 2 guys I've seen, you know, at underage level there, and that Aidan played against the under 20 All-Ireland against Kilkenny a few years ago. Aidan, he came on the other day and got a great point. He's a guy I'd rate. He's coming into the scene. Adam English has been unbelievable off the bench. Colin O'Neill, in fairness, 2 different positions the other day, back and front, outstanding. Colin Coughlin there. So I, you know, being straight about it, love to see Cork now get going, and I think Cork will be a fairly serious entity, you know, in a period of time. But I don't know whether this year it'll happen. But hard for me to look beyond Limerick if they get through, to be honest with you, once they go to Croke Park. And I think like what happened the last day, I wouldn't call it a wake-up call or anything like that, but I think if they get everyone back fit, you know, they have a massive panel then, and particularly the guys coming in off the bench now have been giving him a different lift, you know. So that's the way I'd feel, you know, maybe down the track to another 6 or 7 weeks down the track. That's what we could be looking at, like, you know.
Okay, well, look, Denis, really appreciate you joining us, and enjoy the win, and hopefully you won't enjoy it this coming weekend.
No bother, lads. We'll be there anyway.
Thanks, Denis. Denis, I don't normally say this, but best of luck at the weekend, all right?
I thought that, Michael. I thought that, all right, you might. Good luck, lad. Yeah,
good luck. Thanks, Denis.
Okay, great to have Denis on there. Chris Nolan, hopefully joining us soon enough to talk about the...
Should be, yeah. If I drop off for a second, I'll just check channel just to make sure, maybe, if that's all right. Yeah, I'll just make sure he's good to go.
Make it quick. I'll be on my own here. Okay, go for it, chat. Okay, just going through some of the other results over the weekend, just while Michael's gone away there. In the Christy Ring Cup, Wicklow beat Sligo 216 to 17 points. Tyrone were on the end of a heavy enough defeat to Kildare. That was 231 to 11. Then Derry, they met London, and obviously London had a big win in the football over the weekend, but here they lost by 9 points. That was 222 to 213. The Nicky Rackard, that's all Louth, 412, 217 for Monaghan. Mayo had a hefty victory over Armagh. That finished 429 to 116. And Roscommon 210, Donegal 125. The Laurie Maher saw a big win for Leitrim over Warwickshire. That was 225 to 16. Fermanagh saw off Lancashire by 6 points, 123 to 20. And then the other game was in Breffni Park. That was Longford getting a victory up there, 25 points to 119. And a couple of lads I know that play for Cavan, that formerly played with me in Coola, have not responded to text, so they have not given me their input on that one, which is not too much of a surprise. Here comes Michael back now. Well,
he's been something's after coming up in work. Hopefully, he might be in before the end of the show with a bit of luck. But this just shows you, heroes on Saturday. They're all them boys have jobs to do on a Monday morning.
Well, look, let's talk. We might put back the Cork-Kilkenny or Carlow-Kilkenny game for a little bit if he can jump in. But Dublin, the manner of their victory over Antrim was unbelievable. 332 to 118. Did you see the colour of that coming? I don't think so.
Probably not the colour of that, but I thought they might win convincingly enough. I just thought Antrim haven't been good on the road, and the fact that the air conditioning broke down on their bus definitely didn't help as well. But if you look at it, like particularly in recent times, all the big results have come up in Corrigan, be it the win against Clare in the league, the draw against Wexford in the league, the draw against Dublin in the McDonagh or in the Leinster last year, the close result against Dublin this year, the win against Wexford this year. So like, I don't know, they just haven't travelled nearly as well. Also, they had a couple of weeks obviously to get ready, so I thought, I didn't think fatigue would be an issue. Maybe that was partly to do with the travel down. Like they were doing an extensive warm up on the pitch after they got off the bus to try and shake off whatever travel problems they had. Even before they went, this was in their playing clothes or whatever. But they were kind of chasing their tail from the off. It was a bit of a statement by Dublin, you have to say though. Like this is the best performance probably we've seen in a while when the pressure was on a bit. They've put themselves in a superb position now. Like they've put themselves in a right good position. Top of the Leinster table, basically a semi-final against Kilkenny at the weekend, win and they're in the final. And if they don't win that, they have another semi-final against Dublin, against Galway the week after or 2 weeks after. So they've put themselves in a serious spot.
Yeah, to be fair, Leinster is even though it might not be the same quality as Munster, to be fair, it is proven to be really exciting. But in terms of Dublin, like some of the players were good. Owen O'Donnell back to fitness now, and he was very good.
A fullback,
yeah, back in there. And look, I thought it was a surprise that he wasn't just thrown straight back in there, but that's where he is right now. Conor Burke, very good. Danny Sutcliffe, Brian Hayes, he got a goal for himself. Fergal Whiteley, whose form has been quite good anytime I've seen him this year. Chris Crummey, he's back to himself totally at this stage. Donald Burke, of course, as well. He scored 111, and Micheál Donoghue was asked about him because, all the injuries he had last year after getting injured against Clare. 111, and Donoghue said, sure, he's class personified. A huge plus coming out of this game is his performance. He's back in the rhythm of it. When he's in full flow, it's just effortless striking, and you could see that today. It was great to have him back on top form. Like, I would have him down as probably in the top wrists in the country.
He's a brilliant player, and he only needs that half a yard. He can sit back, sit back off his stronger side and kind of over the shoulder. And obviously they've been missing him since he went off in the All-Ireland quarter-final last year. But the pieces are kind of starting to come together a bit now.
Yeah.
I would have to say I'd agree. You're kind of thinking, maybe they might get something out of O'Donnell up top, but they know exactly what they're going to get from him at number 3. And if he'd had a run of games and been able to get a chance to get used to playing up in the forwards, I'd say one thing. But he played half a game in the Walsh Cup and then, a full game in the Leinster Championship against Carlow. But you know what you're going to get from him there. They also have a much stronger attack now than they would have had, and that was obviously emphasising the massive score that they put up. I think they're humming along nicely, and the fact that like Kilkenny are coming to Parnell,
it's not a game they tend to do well in though. No, I want to see Dublin win this, but traditionally it's not a good one for them.
When was the last competitive one? Was Gilroy's first championship game in Charles up in Parnell. Where was it Liam Blanchfield ended up getting a goal that time?
Yeah, and there was a foul in the lead up to it. It should never have been allowed.
Yeah. Look at that table: Dublin 5, Kilkenny 4, Wexford 3, Galway 3, Antrim 2, Carlow 1. Like everybody's still in with a shout. Like Carlow win their last 2 games, they end up on 5 points, and they would probably have a head-to-head advantage with Wexford. If Antrim could do something this weekend against Galway, that would add even further spice. And the thing about it as well, from an Antrim and a Carlow point of view, so we'll go into it in a greater detail in a minute, but Carlow are last year's Joe McDonagh Cup winners. Like they've been competitive in Leinster to get the result they got against a team that's been in the last 2 All-Ireland finals and chasing 5 Leinsters in a row. Like they cannot even the idea of being relegated this year after that would be a disaster. Same from an Antrim point of view. You beat a Wexford coming up to Corrigan Park. Yeah, it's a disaster. It'd be an absolute disaster. Maybe it will all come back down to that last game where the 2 of them play. where Antrim and Carlow meet. Hopefully not. Hopefully, one of them have put themselves in a position, one or both maybe have themselves in a position where it won't all come down to that game. But like there's just so much kind of spice everywhere. But from a Dublin point of view, going about their business pretty professionally, and that was a real professional performance the other day by all accounts.
The Rube says Kilkenny coming to town with a sore arse, not ideal for Dublin. I was like, there's no better way to sum it up. Park Ryan, Verney was right about Antrim. Anytime there's an air of expectancy, they crumble. There's another good comment.
I wouldn't say crumble, but it is a different frame of mind being a big underdog and saying, boys, we have a free shot at this. Nobody's expecting us to do anything. To all of a sudden, okay, some people are expecting us to do something, and it's a different type of a thing. And I also think with a team like Antrim, and I probably would have said the same about Carlow beforehand, and with Westmeath last year, there's only a certain amount of times you can deliver your best in the round robin, if you get me. There's probably 2 occasions where you can fully go gung-ho and you don't have to deal with the consequences the week after. Like Antrim were terrible the first day, brilliant the second day, not good the third day. Maybe they'll be a hell of a lot better on home soil next week against Galway, but I would actually probably be fearful for them at the weekend, because Galway tend to lay waste to teams that they are, if you're looking at a ladder or a power rankings, Galway would be well ahead of Antrim, and they tend to do really, really well against those teams. So it'd be very interesting to see how they react this weekend.
Dublin against Kilkenny is on at 6 o'clock on Saturday. A full round of Dublin GAA Hurling Club League games are on at 6:30 on Saturday.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Now, teams have been encouraged that if you can move the fixtures, do, but surely this was known a good while ago. So I just find it a little bit strange.
That's mad. Dublin Kilkenny is also not been televised. So, and I'm just saying, like, it's such a bit, like, we're getting to that stage now. Obviously the All-Ireland football the All-Ireland series is starting this weekend. So there's 2 of those games on GAAGO on Saturday, and there's no hurling. Obviously there's a heap of hurling on Sunday. There's like, that should be it every Sunday. but it's just like, I'm hoping I'll be covering it with a bit of luck, because it's the game you definitely want to see on Saturday anyway. It's the game you want to be at if at all possible.
Harburn 6 talks about no Cody and Mullen, gives Dublin a shout the weekend. O'Donnell will be on TJ. Johnny Murphy, ref, will give Donald Burke at least 12 points. Keep the goals out early and they can do it. By the way, when we're mentioning all the injuries, we haven't mentioned Darragh O'Donovan lately. He's obviously a huge loss for Limerick.
They're massive, yeah. Like he was, I'm gonna say it was the Tipperary game. He was down to pick. He was picked to play, or was going to play that weekend. Picked up a calf strain or a calf pull in the week leading up to that. Like, Limerick don't tend to rush lads back, but like Kylie said, Darragh O'Donovan will be back in the next 2 or 3 weeks. In Saturday's press conference, that would lead you to believe that he'd be under pressure. He also said that he thinks Mike Casey might be back in 2 weeks' time, but they don't tend to rush lads straight back into combat. But they're kind of they might be left with no choice. Like, if you had O'Donovan, close to full fitness, and Mike Casey somewhat close to full fitness, that would put a different look on the Limerick team going into that last game against Waterford.
Let's call a spade a spade. A result like this never happened for Kilkenny under Brian Cody, did it? I don't think they've ever been beaten. Obviously it was a draw against Carlow, and there was the red card which went to Killian Doyle, which kind of turned things a little bit. But you'd still expect this to be a game that Kilkenny win by 10 points or whatever, isn't it? Like, this is quite a black mark against the management here, I would say, and the players.
Yeah, I was only chatting Eddie Brennan briefly this morning, and it just, like, there's no point in saying any different. And he'd say it himself, the Westmeath defeat has kind of followed him around at under 21 level, despite the fact that they won a Leinster and got to an All-Ireland the year after and were beaten by, the second great kind of Limerick team. And this is no slight on Carlow whatsoever, but Kilkenny were absolutely red-roaring favourites in this game. Last time they played Carlow down in Carlow in the Leinster Championship, they put a big score on them in 2019 in that round-robin win. I know they were missing a couple of players, but they kind of had control of the game at different stages. They were 7-8 up at different stages, even coming.
They were 8 up in the second half, and it was outrageous to watch. I could not believe what I was seeing. And like, Carlow were really good.
It was some of the. Listen, they took on a lot of shots in the last 10 or 15 minutes that just didn't go over. Tom Phelan been one of the biggest culprits, I would say. He was kind of nearly shooting on sight, and kind of, I forget exactly how he described it, but those wides, they do just suck the energy out of you. Like if a couple of them are going over, you're keeping the scoreboard ticking over, whereas they're going wide. The home crowd is kind of buoyed by that, and they're getting up, and you just got the sense. And even like James Doyle, like Hugh Lawler was brilliant by all accounts, but James Doyle caught a ball over him near the end to put it over to leave one in it. And then I actually just went back and found the rule. That Tom Phelan one at the end. Now I do think it was a bit harsh. He got the ball. He didn't peg it up to the back of the stand or boot it away. Or like I thought, I just kind of would you
he
say
made sure a quick one couldn't be taken. Like if he was able to get the ball into his hand, it meant that the ball was close enough for a quick one to be taken and somebody potentially score. He deserved to get done for it.
Okay, I've seen a lot worse we got away with. I haven't seen that rule probably enforced.
I think it happened somebody messaged me saying it happened in the Galway-Wexford game as well. Now, I can't recall it, but somebody messaged me saying that.
I don't remember it offhand, but I just went back and found the rule. It was it's rule 418 in the official GA rule book. So it's penalty for the above fouls. Free puck 13 metres more advantageous than the place of original puck. That would have been the sideline. And the indiscretion is to delay an opponent taking a free puck or sideline puck by hitting or kicking the ball away, not releasing the ball to the opposition, or by deliberately not moving back to allow the puck to be taken. So basically, a little pushing the ball away. That's why a lot of people would say, like, we were always told when we were young, just hand the ball to the referee in this sort of instance, hand the ball, because it's a gentleman thing to do. Do you know what I mean? And he has to hand the ball to the player, and then you've got a couple of seconds and you're able to reset or whatever. But it was a very kind of high profile use of the rule, and fair play to Mouse Kavanagh. It was interesting to hear him after, like, none of this, oh no, we thrive on this. He said his body was shaking, hitting the free. Like, that's just, it's brilliant to hear such honesty, because it was such a big free. And funnily enough, and it was at the other end of the field, he's nailed probably the two biggest frees in Carlow's history. He nailed a free to draw with Galway, I think, when Galway were All-Ireland champions in I'm going to say it was 2018, maybe it was 2019, in a league game. And obviously this free the other day as well. And listen, it was exactly what they deserved for their endeavours. I thought Kevin MacDonald had a huge second half. It was obviously,
he was a spare man though, but he did it brilliantly. Don't get me wrong, but he was a spare man.
He did it very well. And even Kilkenny retreated even further. I think they were down a man, but I think they were even playing a sweeper in the final couple of minutes as well. But yeah, a brilliant performance from Carlow, and now they have the chance to back it up on home soil again against Wexford. And I'm sure if there was a circle marked in the calendar of certain fixtures, that would have been one, and it's going to be fascinating to see whether they can back it up now.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, the equalising point was scored by Donagh Murphy, who I was told by Nicky Brennan this recently. He's the grandnephew of Len Gaynor.
Go away.
There you go.
He also he's definitely has won colleges All Ireland with Cairns. He would have been. There's no borders anymore, to the best of my knowledge, but he would have been what do they call it, a day tripper or whatever. He would have been going in and out, but that'll just show you the pull that Kieran's has. But yeah, he got a great score when he came in as well. I think that just set up perfectly what was to follow that Saturday. Like, it really was a Saturday like full of entertainment from start to finish.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. So much credit to Carlow, and obviously their manager, Tom Mullally, as well, against his native county. Just to bring up the league table again in Munster. Look at that. Limerick 4, Waterford 3, 2 for Clare and Cork, Tipperary on 1, but everybody's still alive. So that's unbelievable stuff, really. I wanted to ask you about the Leinster football final. You were watching that. We'll be jumping around to different things here, but what do you make of the Leinster football final? 119 to 212, so only 4 points in it. 14th Delaney Cup in a row for Dublin. Is the gap between Dublin, Kerry, and the rest closing?
Well, I'd have to just talk about Louth firstly. Anyway, they were beaten by 21 points in the fixture, the same fixture last year. They made sure it was not going to be anything like that. They played kind of that low block defence. When Sam Mulroy might have had a free, it was really interesting to see it. Mulroy might have a free 50 yards out, and like he's taking the shot on, obviously. So everybody else just retreated back into their defensive position, and unashamedly, no problem. We're not going to have lads hanging around the goals or be playing out of position or anything like that. They wanted to have their defensive structure in place, and they did. They made it very competitive. Was it, unbelievable on the eye? At times, it probably wasn't. But I remember chatting Conor Grimes there a couple of weeks ago. He has that spoonful botanical business, where it's this kind of all different herbs and stuff in a jar, and it's really good for joint support. And I did a piece around that and just talking about football. And I said, how do you reflect on the Leinster final last year? And even how is football changing as regard defensive mindset or whatever? And he said that spectators sometimes need to pick their poison. Do they want to see two teams going gung-ho and one being beaten by 25 points? Or do they want to see a competitive game where it's very tactics heavy and maybe style heavy, but it's competitive and it's gripping? And this was entertaining, and they brought them down the stretch. They got 2 goals. I don't think Cluxton had conceded a goal since the 2018 Leinster quarter-final against Wicklow, of all teams. So it hadn't happened in 6 years, and it happened twice in one game. And Grimes in particular was very good. He kicked 4 from play and had a lot of big performers. Kieran Keane and Kieran Downey. Samuel Roy as well, very, very good. Even Donald McKenny. Bevan Duffy in the middle of the park. Beaten by 4 in the wind-up. They're going into the All-Ireland series in really good health, probably compared to last year, where they were limping in off the back of a pretty disastrous Leinster final display. From a Dublin point of view, and it's funny because Keane has talked about this on the show several times, Dublin just do what they do regardless of the opposition, but Louth kind of stifled them a bit. And it's almost like they couldn't understand some of the things that they were doing, and they weren't always given the obvious pass to a man on the shoulder at different times. They were maybe spraying a kick in when the kick didn't even look on, and it did kind of stifle Dublin, and Dublin never got near the levels that we're accustomed to them being at. Now, they hit a little burst after half time or whatever. Jack McCaffrey came in, and it was actually a stray kick out that he collected that ended up with Con finishing to the back of net. I think Con ended up at 1-4. But Fenton was very, very good when Dublin weren't going well. But Dublin, Desi actually has a bit of a stick to beat them with a small bit now going into the All-Ireland stages, which we haven't said for I don't know how long after a Leinster game. And they were given a pretty competitive game. So I don't think, and it was probably good for the Leinster Championship. This is Dublin's lowest winning margin since beating Meath in 2012, I think.
That's great.
Yeah, fair play to Louth. Like it was a brilliant effort, and there's no reason to suggest that maybe that they can't kick on from here now.
And this is at GA League tables. They have the whole group stages mapped out for us here. Group 1, Galway, Armagh, Derry, Meath, Westmeath, I should say. Group 2, Dublin, Mayo, Roscommon and Cavan. Group 3 sees Donegal, Clare, Tyrone and Cork. And Group 4 is Kerry, Louth, Monaghan and Meath. And I'm delighted to say we're joined by journalist Michael McMullan to talk about the Ulster final. And of course, that has affected the way those group tables are going to line out. But Michael, great to have you on the show. Can you talk to us about that Ulster final? Is that the 3rd year in a row we've gone to extra time, and it's 2 penalty shootouts in a row anyway?
Yeah, that's it. It was a really amazing day, and I'm looking out at the rain at home, and it's such a damper after being in Clonus yesterday with so much drama, and especially now, like I heard Michael talking about the Leinster final. I saw a wee bit of it this morning, obviously just the highlights, and even the close margin there. Maybe the provincials aren't gone, but yesterday in Clonus, lads, it was a joy to be there. As I say, I was there whenever Derry got past Donegal. I'm a Derry man, obviously, and that was high drama last year. And yesterday was every bit as dramatic, and probably Armagh's going to wake up this morning, lads, was just full of regrets. It was there, but it wasn't there. So Donegal again, but brilliant stuff. Really, really enjoyed it.
Michael, did they were 50, they were well up and looked like they were potentially going to kick on. Like, it was hard to see it maybe on TV at times. Did they retreat into their shell a small bit, or like you just wanted them to, from a neutral's point of view, just to kick on and really go for it? Like, they had the foot on Donegal's throat, and they probably just didn't force the issue maybe when they were in that strong position.
They sat back slightly, and I suppose you need to ask the Armagh players their mentality, but I think what often happens whenever you have a lead, you automatically do drift back. But I think it was Oisin Connolly had a chance to put 5 in it, and I think it was Brenton McCole got the slightest of hands just to take the sting out of it. It dropped short, and Niall O'Donnell had a brilliant score to take it back to 3. Then it was Rian O'Neill with that mark. But again, they were able to take it back to 3 again. And it was just moments. Obviously, they sat back slightly, but it was just moments. And you obviously have to give Donegal credit for going for it. But there was another one where there was a kick out flicked by Murnan into Kieran Mackin, and Armagh went into the corner and were turned over. And I think that led to Pater Mogan being fouled for another score. Then you had the 2 skyscrapers at midfield that kicked points. But as you say, it was just whenever there was that wee bit more room in front of goals, you know, and then probably the last big thing that went against him, to be honest, when it was 2018, I thought Nugent's point from that acute angle, I thought that was the insurance point, to be honest. And then whenever it was 2019, Connaughton had a chance and he kicked it across. It was pretty congested. It was close range, but it was congested and it went wide. Maybe at that point, it's time to recycle. And, you know, it was maybe theirs. And just that wee moment. And then obviously it came down to Sean Patton's penalties, but it was his pass to Owen Doherty. You know, much has been said about the lack of kicking, but there was actually quite a bit of kicking yesterday in Clonus. And even Dara Whale's first 2 attacks, even though scores didn't come from them, he found pockets. And Sean Patton obviously found a bigger pocket, and Aaron Doherty with fresh legs, a wee bit like Armagh. Like Armagh's bench was pretty useful for them as well, but that was Owen Doherty taking it back to penalty. So I think you have to give Donegal credit for what they did, but Armagh's never going to get a better chance. Like last year, Rory Grugan got a mark in his territory on his left side. Jerry O'Byrne's got a mark. He's not a noted kicker. The other side was Campbell. I thought he might have had a pop, but it's not his natural kick, so they decided not to. And funny, I'm just wondering by the nature of frees and marks where teams push up. I wonder did Armagh worry about pushing up after scoring the mark in case Patton went over the top. You just wonder, were they saying, no, we're going to do like we did against Down, and then that last play where Murnan won the ball. You know, maybe that was the buzzword all week. Whatever happens, let's work it until it's that kickable chance. And I suppose Connolly thought he had that one and missed it. So maybe that was where their focus lay. So maybe the mark factor went out the window. But as I say, probably the men inside the camp are probably the only people that can answer that for us, to be honest.
And what do you reckon, is there any sort of underlying issue here with Armagh that so often tight games, they just can't get over the line? And I know penalty shootouts might be a lottery or whatever, but if you keep losing them, you know, like the England football team, I'm sure they don't want to be compared to the English football team, but you know, people start seeing a trend and start asking what's going on here. Do you see any issue that's recurring?
Yeah, you would automatically think mentality. Like when there was 4 points in it yesterday, I thought they were home and hosed. I said to Sean Casey beside me in the press box in Armagh, man, I said, it looks like Donegal are going to be coming to Celtic Park through the back door. But you could nearly sense when Donegal got it back to 2, like there were still 2 points in it, but you nearly get the sense in Clonus that it was nearly Armagh who needed to get the next score to take it back to 3, if that makes sense. You know, they nearly needed a cushion, you know, and I think that's why I keep emphasising that last shot of Connaughton's was the fact that they worked that score against Down. If they had been able to do that again yesterday, we would be having a different conversation today. You'd be talking about Armagh grating it out in 2 results. You know, actually funny, Maurice Brosnan was on my podcast this morning there in the Gaelic Life, and he said that he just happens to remember looking at Patrick McBrearty lifting the cup, you know, and a couple of feet below him in the tunnel was McGuinness standing as illusion manager, like, and that could easily have been so different. But I don't know, lads, like I know that I think Armagh did have a psychologist involved with them, so I don't know, you know, what the story is there, but you would imagine it's something they need to address. The thing about it is they don't have much time. Like Westmeath had them on the rack for majority of that game last year, and it was in the athletic ground, so you know they can't really. There's no time for sort of feeling sorry for yourself really now in this format.
But it's impossible not to, isn't it? It's like
it's impossible not to. Yeah.
When it keeps happening, like it was funny. The RT footage kept panning back to the Armagh management shoulders around each other. And McGuinness he was kind of half smiling, like you're surely just thinking, surely it's going to shine on us today. And it didn't. I thought when the 5th penalty, Patton should have saved the 5th penalty in the regulation. I was like, geez,
Tiernan Kelly.
It's surely their day. And it's very difficult, though, lads. It is difficult. Whoever was scoring the first penalty, to step up to take the second one, you probably know in your head where you're putting the first one, but you probably never thought about the second one. And you're like, it's this mad second guessing game. If I go the same place, will he read me, or do I need to change my mind? Does he remember where I put it the first time? But just, Michael, on Armagh, like, where do they go from here now? It's very difficult for everyone to pick themselves up. I don't buy the idea of, they're serial losers or any of this kind of crack. They're beaten on a penalty shootout again. They probably should have kicked on in normal time. But
they're serial not winners. They're serially finding ways to not win. So whatever you want to say, that is a trend.
Yeah. Before I come on to that, I think there's a point that needs made here again, and I think it's something that county boards have to propose. The only thing that can change the Congress is if there's a proposal. But I think county boards need to make the simple proposal today. Don't complain about penalties. Make the proposal that when it goes to sudden death, the other 10 players who haven't hit a penalty, they keep going and keep going. Like Callum Comiskey last year, Shane McPartlin this year, it's not fair. It's just not fair. It's a tough enough gig. Like, surely that's an easy enough solution for a few counties to propose it and for it to be seconded, But your point there about where does Armagh go? They simply just have to go and win that Westmeath game. They just have to. It's just as simple as that. The danger is that I still feel the Dubs are massive favourites for Sam. So you nearly feel as if it's beyond Armagh. So they're going to need to get a few big results in a row to try and gain something. So they're just going to have to come out and beat Westmeath. It's as simple as that, and keep chipping away and worry about the next big game when it comes, because it's going to be, God knows, they could end up at a quarter final in Croke Park with extra time, and we're having the same conversation again. I'm not sure, but you probably just have to keep watching those video moments and saying, look, here's what we did, here's what we should have done. But it's bound to be so frustrating this morning. But at the same time, I think we should still be, we can't focus too much on the team who didn't win. I still think Donegal deserve immense credit for, I suppose, not only getting promoted, lads, and winning yesterday, but the way they've been able to get the county behind them. Like out on the pitch yesterday, just that you couldn't turn a sweet in your mouth among all the people, and like people just, like any player you interviewed, they chatted about the fans, the selfies, all the things that we see everywhere. But there seems to be something that Donegal have just been able to generate. There you go. There's that picture. I mentioned that picture a few times. Like they're all running around. So I think Morris texted that they were eating cornettos and some of them were drinking pints and whatever. But there was just a real feel-good factor. And finally on that was, I was up at the Highland Talk Show the previous Monday there. Brenton Devaney was running it and chatting to a few of the locals around Sister Sarah's. And they were just talking about, obviously football, they're fanatical about football, but they were just talking as well about just the fact that the fans were completely behind them. It was nearly as if they were nearly the 16th man. But there seems to be a feeling, and whether it's Jim buying into that, because he keeps referring to the pride of Donegal, he keeps talking about pride, and the players are talking about that, and it doesn't kick the ball over the bar for you. It doesn't win you games, but maybe, is it too easy to say it? Maybe it's just a chemistry thing where they just, say in the huddle yesterday, Jim's able to say something, or Colin or McGee or whoever, say, look, the people are with us here. I don't know what it is, but I think everybody always follows the team who wins. That's always the latest trend. So maybe the trend, and if you look at Louth, like Louth are another example, look what they did yesterday. They took a 20-odd point defeat to a game yesterday. So maybe counties need to tap into the basic stuff, like bringing the county with you. So Donegal seem to have been able to do that, and it's probably a wee bit like Rory Gallagher did with Derry. It's when that's involved, it's something you want to be a part of. So that's where, and maybe, and Armagh have obviously got a massive following, and maybe it would just take one game where they can bury that hoodoo where that would change. Unfortunately, one of them has gone yesterday.
Just on the Donegal thing really quickly, like it's amazing the parallels between McGuinness's first term and the start of his second term. He comes in 2011, they're at a horribly low ebb. He turns things around, gets promotion from Division 2, wins in Ulster. He comes in 2024, they're a rabble the year before. The supporters are not behind him. He comes in, gets them promoted from Division 2, wins in Ulster, beating Derry, Tyrone and Armagh. Like it has to be a belief thing as well, as in, I don't know, like you even looking at him on the sideline, looking at him as the imposing kind of figure he is. When he talks to you, or like I know he's done various presentations in different areas, like looking for sponsorship and whatever, and he just has a very strong sell. People buy into what he is selling. Players buy into it. Like by all accounts, this time with him coming, like it was 4 or 5 lads going to his house nearly, wasn't it, to try and get him back. Like, so like you do anything for a fella then if that's the nature of it. But like it's amazing. The turnaround's been amazing, Michael. Like within 10 months.
It has been, like, but at the same time, we'll have to remember that the core of that team has played in Ulster finals. They've won medals. Like it's not as if he took a gather up of boys. Let's be fair. He took a good bunch. But he obviously seems to have that thing where he can bring everybody with him. Now, he did that before, and he did that. Obviously, there was that whole game of going to Croke Park and playing that really negative day where he realised, look, I can stop the best teams in Ireland here. Next year, we'll try and do something different. So that worked. They won in All-Ireland. All those players that are playing now, with I suppose with the exceptions of Patrick McBrearty, Ryan McHugh, and maybe Hugh McFadden, none of them have played under him. Like I had to read Kieran Thompson and from his own club, and he had never played under him bar a couple of training sessions. So that new group of players coming in this year, they're seeing Jim McGuinness stand at the front of the meeting room at the start of the year and thinking this man has worked the oracle. Then he takes on Derry and beats him like it's a 6-point hammer in Celtic Park. He beats Derry with a plan that he probably preached, that we're going to go long, we're going to fight for every break. If we win those breaks, our runners will tear Derry apart. And that worked. So no matter what he says, man, those players will believe it 100%. The fans will believe it. The sponsors will believe it. The people in London that are backing them will believe it. So there's only one way it can go. But the thing about it is, yesterday, the break of a ball and they're gone. You know, the break of a ball and you're gone. But I don't know. We'll just have to call it an aura. Is that what we have to call it?
Michael, like you've done a book, Derry Game of My Life, all about Derry, and you've already talked about being from there. You have a fairly horrible group, and I just wonder, like, is that the group of death here? Galway, Armagh, Derry, Westmeath, 4 excellent teams.
It is the group of death. It really is. And I think you could have added Cork. We could have potentially have got Cork, which leaves it really tough. But then if you think what Westmeath did last year, and you know, they probably
should have knocked out their own, shouldn't they?
Yeah. And then this year, like I fancied Down to win the Division 3 league final, and Westmeath found a way of stopping them. So it definitely is. And I'm worried about Saturday in Salt Hill, to be honest, because Galway in the league game were so threadbare in terms of personnel, and Derry were really strong. Like Derry attacked the start of the league, rightly so. I don't think they should have done anything differently. Because staying up, people might laugh at me as a Derry man, but staying up was so important after being away from the top flight for 10 years. But that day in Salt Hill now has changed. Like I think, was it Killian McDaid has yet to play, and then obviously Cook's gone and things. But by and large, Galway are running out the tunnel next Saturday with a full hand.
Imagine if only one team or if 2 teams got knocked out per group, this would be this would be 100 times better.
100 times more jeopardy. The only thing, and I would have said that, the only thing is because 3 teams go through, there's less chance of dead rubbers, which I would, because I would have been the same as you. I think, well, why do we play 1,000 games to lose 1 team? But there would be dead rubbers, but it really is a tough group. And then obviously, like Derry have played 4 championship games against Galway. They've never beat them. They haven't kept a clean sheet against them since 2007 in a league or championship. And like, that's a tall order this weekend. And if Derry were able to win that, it would put them in an amazing situation. But talk about the structures all you want. I still firmly believe that you have to finish top of that group, because if you don't, you have an extra game in the preliminary quarterfinals at a time of the year when the last thing you need is an extra game.
Absolutely.
So, and people are like, there was quite a bit of talk around Derry, lads, about, oh, sure, it's great, we don't need another Ulster title, sure, we'll get 4 or 5 weeks. Nonsense. The Derry Donegal game was the Ulster final. That's why it was such a gut-wrenching defeat. And especially yesterday, you're thinking, if we had to go out to Celtic Park, we'd have won Ulster game. Now you're sort of backpedaling.
Do you think Derry have evolved from last year? Are they a better team now, or like does not winning the Ulster title suggest that they've gone back even a small bit?
I think they've got a better all-round squad, but the problem is, you know, you have a few injuries in there. There's a few knocks ahead of this weekend, and Paddy McGrogan, who a very underrated player, has gone. So that's difficult. The bigger picture with Derry is you have a minor team that's in the semi-final again that's probably going to be knocking around the championship. They have an under-20 team which is pretty young this year. There's a very, very good foundation, but the problem is that it's getting like, if you, like, let's look at the benchmark, the Dubs. Like, would that have been Jack McCaffrey's 3rd appearance of the year or 2nd, comes on and has an assist for a goal. You know, that's where you need to get to, and I think a lot of teams are struggling in that department, and Derry probably are as well, but they are that wee bit further on. But make no mistake about it, I feel that defeat in Celtic Park is an awful kick, and we'll know more on Saturday, lads. But it's going to leave it a difficult game in Salt Hill.
Just that question coming up there from Traumspeeder. What's wrong with McGrogan? Hadn't heard. That's a cruciate, Michael, isn't it?
Yeah, he tore his cruciate at training on the Thursday after they lost to Donegal. And to put it in context, Paddy McGrogan was the captain of the minor team that the 2017 final when David Clifford tore them apart, basically. And when Rory Gallagher took over at the start of the 2020, Paddy McGrogan has missed 1 game in that whole scenario. It was against Longford. It was the first game back after COVID. Ethan Doherty and Conor Glass made their debut in the same night. Paul Cassidy as well. That was a big night in terms of the shape of the Derry team. Actually, that one night, I know it was a Division 3 league game, you know, in Celtic Park under lights, but it was a massive, massive game. And I remember asking Rory Gallagher after, maybe about a year after, I says, that time Paddy didn't play against Longford, was he injured or were we just changing it up? And he says, he must have been injured because you don't go out without him. And this Saturday, Derry have to go out without him. So, and probably one of those players that doesn't get the same plaudits, you know, as a Conor McCluskey or a Conor Glass, Brenton Rodgers, but Derry will know about it on Saturday when they're without him.
Do you notice any difference in the style of play since Mickey Hart took over from obviously Kieran Mina, but before that Rory Gallagher?
I noticed they're kicking it a wee bit more, but that probably is with Kieran McFall being involved. He's a heads-up footballer by nature. His first instinct's to look up, and if not, it's recycle. But they've kicked it that wee bit more. They're attacking things quite similar in the fact they go with that width thing where it's 5 men, you've 2 out in the touchline, and they're trying to stretch teams. And to be honest with you, the kick-out debate, the whole thing about pushing up on pattern and getting cleaned out, that obviously lost Derry the game. But that's not the biggest concern for me, because I think that's a tweak that you can make. And let's face it, if Derry had won half those break balls at that stage, we're having a different conversation. We're saying, we're Derry brave to go after pattern. You know, there's always a funny narrative in football. But the thing that I worry about is that the width that Derry brought to their attack, that every team in Ireland followed. Like, whenever the wing men went to the wing, defenders were following. And then Ethan Doherty was cutting back in, which he's brilliant at. But what Donegal did, and Celtic Park helped because it's narrow anyway. But what Donegal did that night was they basically, if you went out to the corner flag with the ball, they basically says, see you later, lads. You're going to still have to come back in here. And as the first half proved, it was 3 Ethan Doherty points that actually kept Derry ticking. And Brenton McCole was picking up Shane McGuigan, and he did a really good job. But the bottom line, a wee bit like Johnny McGrath did down in Salt Hill, he kept Shane McGuigan quiet. But because it was so congested, there was no. So my concern for Derry is, come Saturday, is are they able to find a way of cutting back in? Because that's where all their joy came from. And that would be my concern, obviously, on top of the sort of the hangover of losing the big game and losing your Ulster title.
You're teeing this game up nicely, I have to say, Michael. Do you want to jump in, Michael?
No. Like it's fascinating because I would have potentially been of the mindset as well, Mike, that maybe after going gung-ho for the league and playing a league final and playing a real attritional game, that maybe the break mightn't do Derry any harm. Listen, a lot of the time is you're trying to put a positive on a negative. A lot of the time when you're trying to see a silver lining, even if there isn't one. But it will be fascinating to see what we get out of Derry over the coming weeks.
I think make no mistake, I think the thing that's lingered in my head is this Galway. Galway always seem to do a number on us, and no more than a minor final in Croke Park, last minute goal. So there's always that Galway factor hanging over. Like Matthew Clancy took an All-Ireland away from us, no one, I felt that day. I'll never forget it. I had the Burlington book before he had even kicked the ball into the net. So there's a Galway factor there that, I don't know, it's just, you're back to maybe Armagh's mental game. Maybe it's a Derry thing with Galway.
Would any of the Tailteann Cup results have stood out to you, or any team that you've been keeping an eye on, any plotline?
No, the results went, well, obviously I would have more of an Ulster focus. They went pretty much according to plan. It's the Laois one, I can never predict them. We have a prediction competition going in our local pub, and I went for Laois this weekend, and it was a draw. So they seem to be the unpredictable horse. But
you can't predict that, Mike. They won Division 4. They beat Carlow by double figures when they played them. Carlow got beaten 4-17 or 4-19 to 8 points at Leinster. And then Carlow come out and produced that.
I know.
How do you predict that?
No, I suppose if you're looking to see who wins it, you're looking at a Sligo or a Down or, Fermanagh Antrim, you're looking at teams. And I think the Tailteann Cup comes down to one simple thing. Do you go for it? Do the players start thinking about the club scene and thinking we're not far away with the club lads, we'll give them an extra night? Or do people start to see America and thinking, you know what, a couple of months around New York will be deadly? Or do they look at somebody and say, look, we're going to go for the Tailteann Cup? I interviewed Rory McCann, the Antrim. Well, they have two Rory McCanns, Rory Cregan, and his take on it was that getting to the semi-final last year gave them 5 or 6 games that they never would have had in terms of development. And I'm sure Andy McEntee's playing that same card again this year. So that's where I see it. And again, a lot of people knock it. A lot of people see it as a second-rate competition, but it's up to the teams to embrace it and build on it. And, like Westmeath, like some of you lads were chatting about the Tyrone game last year and the Armagh game. Is that an example for somebody? I know they're not in the Tailteann Cup, but look what Louth did in terms of last year's Leinster final to now. Look at what's going on in Sligo with their under-20 teams. A lot of counties can take a lot of examples from places like that. And instead of sort of, turning your nose up at competitions or not seeing the importance of them, or, the likes of a Louth or Sligo, are they not a sort of a light to follow?
100%. You didn't mention Kildare there, but another bit of an enigma. I ended up covering that game at the same time as the hurling was on the other night. Now, needless to say, I would have liked to have been in other places, but they delivered. It was like champagne football, lads. The 80% of the shots that have gone, they scored. They ended up at 325, 17 scores out of 19 in the first half. Things couldn't have went any better. And I even chatting a couple of players, one or two players after, and they openly admitted that they weren't 100% sure where it came from. But everything just seemed to click for them. It was mad. And I think that is important for them, though, because if you're talking about, I thought potentially they might have checked out because that's not somewhere they want to be. Yeah. But that's probably a good sign for what they'll deliver in the rest of the campaign, because I know of plenty of counties, as you do, I'm sure as well, Michael, that you probably have a fair idea that the buy-in's not really there beforehand. And if the buy-in's not there, you're a goose before a ball is even thrown up, Yeah,
to be honest, I didn't leave it intentionally. I was just doing that, rattling off the names. But when you mentioned it, Michael, the statement I was making, America, club focus versus all in, I was probably getting out of Kildare. Because my prediction for Gaelic Life this week, I predicted Kildare, but I remember writing, I would penny for the thoughts of the Kildare players, but they should win. I remember saying that, penny for their thoughts, because it'll be up to them. You know, like people's talking about Jim McGuinness doing what he did, but Jim even said as well, he says that, you know, the players, you know, at the end of the day, you need a good setup, but, you know, when the ball's there to be won or lost, you know, it was Sean Patton who made that pass to Oran Doherty. You know, it wasn't Jim McGuinness. So the Kildare players have to look around and say, look, this is where we are at here. You know, do we want to not win the Tottenham Cup? And people saying, holy God, what's going on? Or thinking, right, we have to come out swinging here.
Michael, I just want to finish up with two questions. Number one, who's the best goalkeeper in the country right now? And number two, who's your tip for the All-Ireland?
The second one's easy. I'm tipping Dublin. Every weekend, I remember somebody saying to me, I don't think there's an All-Ireland in Derry, you know, even after the league final. But I turned that on his head and I says, look, I can't see anybody beating Dublin. There's just too much quality and it suits them. Like, they don't have to lift a leg really until the quarterfinals. You know, it's all pretty much routine. Whereas look at Donegal yesterday or whatever. Best goalkeeper in the country, tough enough question because there are so many, but Patton's kick out is something people don't have because it's a bullet. Morgan, probably between those two.
I genuinely, in the morning, if I had to pick of any goalkeeper in the country, I would have Stephen Cluxton all day, every day, twice on Sunday, regardless of age or anything else.
But like, he's more.
You're opening a can of worms with me there. I don't think he should have been the All-Star goalkeeper last year. I thought it should have been Shane Ryan. He had a 100% kick out rate in the final, but Kerry dropped off. Brian Hurd he won something like 15 kickouts out of 15 or something in that final.
Yeah, something ridiculous. Yeah.
But and I'm not belittling him because he was the best goalkeeper ever. He was the best goalkeeper ever. But on that particular year, he came back late, and I thought Shane Ryan, save from Gareth McKinless, won the game. And if it wasn't for him, Mayo would have beat them by 1,000 points down in was it Killarney?
That's right, yeah.
But Cluxton, best goalkeeper ever, without a shadow of a doubt. But now I don't think so.
And you just wonder, could he do in goals for Derry or Tyrone, for example, what some of the other boys are doing? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the only thing on that is that he does what he needs to do for the team that he's playing with at the minute. You know, if could he do what Patton can do? Probably not, but I wouldn't put it past him either. It's funny, I was watching him today against Offaly, and I know they're only playing Offaly, but he was actually, everyone says that, you know, someone was saying recently, they might have been Ryan McCluskey, that Cluxton doesn't offer what other goalkeepers offer in the modern game because they come out and, you know, play the extra man or the 16th man or whatever. But he was standing out around the 45, and there might as well have been three extra people there. He was dictating the whole thing. It was like the whole thing was on a string, and he was moving people around. And just sometimes, lads, being able to talk and organise is as good as being able to run up and down the pitch at times. I still think I'd have him in goal if I was picking the best team in the country.
Yeah, well, the only thing is, Dublin probably don't need him to come out. It probably depends on the personnel, to be fair. But no, he was definitely, I want to put that in record, he's been the best goalkeeper ever. Don't get me wrong. But it's just the Shane Ryan All-Star last year, I thought was a bad call.
Well, look, Michael, really appreciate you joining us. And best of luck for the rest of the season for Derry. And we'll chat to you again, hopefully.
Say a prayer for us Saturday, lads.
Cheers, Michael.
So, Michael, looks like we're not going to get Chris Nolan on, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll get him on again. But yeah, like, how much of an impact do you think this will have on Kilkenny, or will this just be a footnote at the end of the season?
I would say it was a footnote if there wasn't so much, if it hadn't stacked the deck against them a small bit now. Like, there's so much on the line in every game from here on in. But particularly, you look at it, I don't know if Mullen's going to be back for this weekend. Owen Cody's definitely not going to be back from what I'm hearing. So they've left themselves in a spot. It's not typically a spot that Kilkenny have found themselves in. It's been Wexford going to Nolan Park looking for a result. It's been Wexford hosting Kilkenny in Wexford Park looking for a result. Now Kilkenny all of a sudden are desperate for a result. And I know I've always said it to you, you're guaranteed, like most days, what you're going to get out of Kilkenny, they're going to get to a fair level. That was a fair bit below now what their standard level is the other day. So there would be, there'd definitely be a little bit of worry going into this weekend. saying that, I'd be surprised if they don't. Very surprised if they don't win next Saturday too.
Yeah, no, I do think so. It's just that so often Dublin don't fully turn up against Kilkenny. That's the trouble. Whatever it is about the black and amber jersey, they're not really able to respond to it all that often. But you just don't know because, like you said, Dublin, it just feels like the pieces are coming into place just at the right time now. So that's where I give them a little bit of a chance. By the way, I thought Owen Wall did quite well. He scored, was it 1-3 from play? He got that goal very early. By the way, Kilkenny were just hitting wide after wide early in the game. Now, to be fair to Carlow, when they were making a bit of a comeback, they had some crazy wides. And when you have the extra man, they were shooting from 80 yards at times. And I was just pulling my hair out saying, lads, will you just chill, play the ball around a little bit more and make Kilkenny run after you? But, just not very Kilkenny-esque against a team that they normally would fill it.
Yeah, even the Killian Doyle sending off is not really a Kilkenny thing, like a wild swipe and be playing with 14. Like, just trying to think when was the last time they had someone sent off on a straight red, like hardly going back to Richie Hogan in the 2019 All-Ireland, are we? No,
because Owen Cody got sent off in the league final and we were saying, look, there's proof that they don't have to collapse if they get a red card.
I can't remember the last time that somebody sent off in a championship game, but there's been so many championship games that maybe I'm just forgetting one. But apparently I think Doyle is missing for the Kilkenny under-20s on Wednesday against Offaly now as a result, which would be a big loss. And even Mark Dowling, the 20 manager, I'm sure would have been scratching his head a small bit, wondering why one of his best players is playing on the Saturday before a Leinster semi-final. But that probably... I thought maybe the balance would be tipped in Offaly's favour anyway, but that should tip it a small bit more. Okay, well, we've a fair bit covered on the show today. So will we call time at that? We will. Yeah, no, just and again, it was against my own county, but it just a big hat tip to the London footballers. Just a savage result. They were 2 up, having played with a massive breeze in the first half, scored 8, and then they ended up with 2-14 in the second half. And I don't have a London footballer in particular for goal of the week. I'm going to give it to Michael Maher, the London manager, because he's hung tough in a very, very it's a difficult team to manage, difficult to get everybody together, logistics and travel involved with London and lads coming from all different areas or whatever. So I'm going to give it to the London football manager, Michael Maher, from a football point of view. From a hurling point of view, you know what? I thought Brian Hayes came of age on Saturday night. I thought he was huge for Cork. And he's probably not someone we were talking a huge amount beforehand. Brian Hayes from Cork, Michael Matter from London. Yeah, I think we have to give it to Seamus Flanagan. 3-3 in a defeated team. I think that was incredible going. There's a lot of lads from the Cork hurlers you could pick. Dara Fitzgibbon. We did mention him, but it feels like we almost didn't mention him enough. He was really, really good. And I'm going to give it to Sean Patton. In a very tense situation, just about got it done. So that's it. Well, doesn't get any tenser than that. I don't know if you see the pictures after. I thought it was funny. There was 2 photographers to the left of it was like the media team, and then there was a social media team which looked like the Armagh. Like that was that's definitely a new development, because usually, like even you've seen soccer World Cup finals where there is nobody else in the picture. So that was a funny one. Yeah, I hazard a guess and say it might be allowed the next time. Yeah, of course. Do you remember the World Cup when it ended in penalties? So your man Salt Bay ended up out in the pitch getting photos with the World Cup. Yeah. Shelminator says, lads, don't forget to give props to Clare under-20 guy Conor Whelan, one man full forward line. And he basically scored everything bar 2 points against Tip last Friday night. And like, to be fair, I thought it was an excellent game. And you know, you might call me a little bit biased, but Paddy McCormack having to go off for Tipperary early in the game because he was going really well. I think he'd scored 3 points and had won a free for a point very, very early in the game. But if they end up meeting again in a Munster final, that'll be another cracker. The under-20's been excellent. Yeah, under-20's been very good. It's like it's such a busy time at the minute. Like there's a game nearly every night. You're going to have the 2 Leinster semi-finals on Wednesday night and then leading into the biggest weekend in hurling in I don't know how long, realistically. Everybody going in hope. And as Andy Dufresne says, hope is a great thing. And Sean Law says, why the Saint go with a Limerick man when Carlow came up with their greatest win of all time? It was a draw, in fact. And Cork have a pitch invasion, LOL. We could have given it to Chris Nolan if he had to get on the show on time. Or Marty Kavanagh, yeah.
He actually had a brilliant game. Okay, look, that's it from the show. We'll be back again next Thursday. Talk to you then, Michael.
Sound, you know.